Donald Trump's war against Iran doesn't seem to be going according to plan, and now the war in the Middle East could engulf the entire region. The United States plans to send a third carrier strike group to the shores of Iran, led by the nuclear aircraft carrier George Bush, which is currently off the coast of the United States of America. At the same time, the United Kingdom is preparing its aircraft carrier Prince of Wales for deployment in the Middle East. At the same time, US President Donald Trump publicly threatened today to deliver a powerful strike against Iran, and in private conversations expressed serious interest in deploying American troops on Iranian territory. But what went wrong? Or did Washington actually plan to get involved in a long, bloody war? My name is Alexei Pecci. Let's discuss this topic together, but before we start, I ask you to subscribe. Please subscribe to this channel, like this episode, and leave any comment under this video, so that YouTube's algorithms recommend this episode to as many viewers as possible. And please subscribe to my Telegram channel, Peachy News. The link is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. So, the United States of America is planning to launch the largest bombing operation against Iran tonight, March 7th, to destroy facilities and factories related to missiles, as well as to strike institutions and officials in Tehran that have not previously been targeted by the US and Israel. This statement was made today by Donald Trump, and later it was repeated and confirmed by US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who is currently trying to stabilize the global oil market. Bessent, echoing Trump's words, said that the Iranians are losing the military battle where they are being defeated. Makes sense, right? Let me repeat it to fully grasp this thought. The Iranians are losing the military battle where they are being defeated. At the same time, according to Bessent, Iran is fighting a battle on two fronts. Quoting the words of the chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and President Donald Trump, the head of the U.S. Treasury, said that Washington will launch the largest bombing operation in Iran in the evening. And I quote, "Poti. Tonight will be our largest bombing campaign, which will inflict the greatest damage on Iranian missile facilities, factories producing missiles, and we will significantly weaken them." Previous US military actions and their campaign against Iran as a whole have been convincing. Well, as of the time of recording and publishing this episode, the United States of America has not yet started that large-scale bombing, the bombing operation, but the US is definitely preparing for it. The United States plans to send a third carrier group to the shores of Iran, led by the nuclear aircraft carrier George Bush, which is currently off the coast of the US. The nuclear aircraft carrier George Bush has just completed preparations near Cape Hatteras on the coast of North Carolina and is now awaiting orders to set out on its mission. The preliminary plan calls for the carrier group to move to the eastern part of the Mediterranean Sea and deploy in the area where the aircraft carrier Gerald Ford was previously located. By the way, the latter passed through the Suez Canal on March 5th and is now in the Red Sea. I should note that the dozens of fighter jets on board the aircraft carrier, together with the missile destroyers in its escort, can be used to strike potential targets in Yemen. Well, in case there are signs of attacks by Yemeni Houthis on Israel or international maritime shipping. In addition, another carrier strike group led by the aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln is already operating in the area of the US-Israeli operation against Iran. And let me remind you here that the aircraft carrier George Bush is an American nuclear-powered aircraft carrier of the Nimitz class. It is the 10th and last ship of this class. The ship is named after the 41st President of the United States, George Bush Sr. It was launched in 2006 and commissioned into the fleet in 2009. The ship's crew consists of 3,200 people plus another 2,480 from the air wing. The aircraft carrier can carry up to 90 airplanes and helicopters. In addition, there have been reports that the United Kingdom is preparing its aircraft carrier HMS Prince of Wales for possible deployment to the Middle East. Moreover, Britain is cutting the preparation time for deployment in half to just 5 days. And speeding up the readiness time means that this giant vessel will be able to respond more quickly if a decision is made to mobilize. It is also reported that the crews have been warned about deployment in connection with the US and Israel operation against Iran. At the same time, Sky News clarifies that this step does not mean that the warship, which carries F-35 fighters and requires the escort of several other ships and a submarine, will be sent to strengthen Britain's defense in the Persian Gulf and around Cyprus. But this means that Prime Minister Keir Starmer will have more opportunities to move it more quickly if it is deemed necessary. In addition, Donald Trump, who stated that Iran is behaving badly and therefore the operation will be expanded, has expressed serious interest in private conversations about deploying American troops on Iranian territory. NBC News reported this today. According to the channel's sources, Trump discussed the idea of sending ground troops to Iran with his aides and representatives of the Republican Party outside the White House. Trump also hopes that in post-war Iran, uranium reserves will be under American control and both sides will cooperate in oil extraction just like in Venezuela after the overthrow of Nicolas Maduro. During private discussions, it was stated that there was no talk of a large-scale ground invasion of Iran. Trump's idea is to deploy a small contingent of American troops in the country, which will be used to accomplish specific strategic objectives. According to the sources, the president has not yet given the order to deploy the troops. Meanwhile, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt stated that Trump, quote, reserves the right to take any course of action. Let me remind you, earlier this week in an interview with the New York Post, President Trump did not rule out the option of a ground operation in Iran. At that time, Trump noted that unlike previous presidents, he, quote, has no fear about sending troops, adding that such intervention would probably not be necessary. But experts point out that American troops could appear in Iran in the event of the overthrow of the Ayatollah regime. These troops could be used to help establish relations between Washington and Tehran, similar to those that were established with Venezuela. Or to ensure control over Iran's uranium reserves, which are believed to be hidden deep underground at several nuclear facilities. But at the same time, more and more experts are saying that a US and Israeli military operation against Iran risks turning into a prolonged regional war, despite the elimination of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Now the White House is facing economic pressure and a lack of a clear strategy for ending the military campaign. They say that unlike President Trump's previous swift operations, the Iranian campaign is showing signs of a prolonged confrontation that threatens global stability. And now, one of the most pressing problems has become the virtual halt of tanker traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, through which 1/5 of the world's oil passes. This has already triggered a rise in gasoline prices in America, which is a critical factor for American voters. And let me remind you, Trump has midterm elections in Congress this November. Despite the White House's statement about the defeat of the Iranian regime, military analysts point out the lack of strategic planning. They ask, what's next? Right now, from a political, strategic, and diplomatic point of view, it seems that not everything was thoroughly thought through to the end. That's why the war now looks increasingly chaotic, and Trump will either declare some kind of intermediate victory without finishing the war, or the US will get drawn into a new war in the Middle East, which could turn out to be even larger than the war in Iraq. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. If you found this episode interesting and useful, you can support the work of this YouTube channel financially through your donation or a channel membership. You can do this using the links and details in the description of this video or by scanning the QR code on your screen. I will be grateful for any support you can give. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.